growing complaints about the pettiness of American politics, the 2012 presidential campaign has turned into a far-reaching debate about the size and scope of government. Joining me to discuss is John Hancock. John, thank you for coming in today.
Great to be here.
Thank you. Now, in a recent poll, it was shown that 3/4 of voters believe that Obama wants to have a bigger government, whereas the same amount believe that Romney wants a smaller federal government. But just how important is this debate, do you think?
I think it's a really significant debate, ideologically significant debate, and it's probably surprising in a way that it's taken so long to come to the surface. But if you watch the proceedings of this Republican convention just last week, I think the unofficial slogan was, "I built it." And it was a reference to a speech that President Obama made several months ago where he said in response to business entrepreneurs, "You didn't build it," or he was implying that you didn't build it alone. You needed government support, you needed trained workers, you needed an active police force, you needed a transportation network. But what it came across to Republican delegates, and probably to small businessmen throughout America, is that the Obama administration is not friendly to business and that it favors big government as a solution to problems. And this is significant because it probably contrasts most starkly with what other Democratic leaders have said in the past. I mean, you think of Bill Clinton in the 1990s saying the era of big government is over, and Obama now suggesting that government as a solution to problems looks very different.
What do you make of this claim that the era of the big government is over? What do you think about that?
It's a good question. At some basic level, fiscally, it's true. I mean, we've had a government that has largely been funded in recent years by the U.S. government has been funded by debt, and it's been funded by debt because GDP growth has not kept up with the pace of government spending. I mean, roughly the period 1947 to 1973, the 25 years between 47 and 73, GDP over doubled. 73 to early 2000, GDP barely grew by a quarter, but government spending doubled. So we were able to paper that over with deficits and debt. Now that day of reckoning has come, and it was brought to a fore by the financial crisis. And I think one basic level of debate is, can we afford big government? But the Republican convention and the debate between Romney and Obama are getting to another question, which is government the solution? It isn't just a fiscal question, it's an ideological question about the role of government.
Now, perhaps the biggest clash between Romney and Obama is with regards to Medicare. What is your take on this situation?
It's an interesting question again, because Medicare after defense and well, basically all arms of defense is one of the biggest shares of U.S. Budget expenditure. The Obamacare program has tended to add layers of bureaucracy and regulation to an already heavily regulated medical sector. So if you listen to doctors and nurses and medical practitioners, they're not entirely happy with Obamacare. But equally, the Romney repeal and replace plan seems to be back to the future, going back to a largely privately funded, or in the case of Medicare, solely state-funded but heavy bureaucratized medical system that wasn't working before Obamacare, that was one of the most expensive systems in the world. So neither side seems to have a solution to this. Again, it gets back to the basic fiscal problem. The United States has the most expensive medical system in the world. Technology and an aging population mean that these expenses are only going to increase, and government's means have diminished. And how do you square that circle? So the role of government, the cost of government is central to this debate.
Now also, Romney seems to be campaigning for free markets, whereas Obama's mantra is more concerned with equality. But how will either of these campaigns affect the American people?
The debate between equality and free markets, or freedom, is an age-old debate. I mean, it's existed since the Enlightenment. Basic question is, can you have a prosperous economy and social democracy? Can you have a free market, an uninhibited free market, and a welfare state? The idea that you could have both prevailed in political circles for the last 50 or 60 years, ever since the Second World War. It was a basic consensus of politics, that of a mixed economy, that you would use the resources generated by a free market to fund social welfare, education, a more equitable state. With the financial crisis, with the implosion of the sense that there's limitless government funding, people are beginning to question this. I mean, can you have a free market, free society, and at the same time pursue equality? Are they one and the same thing? Are they diametrically opposed? I mean, there's a famous American philosopher, historian, who said that freedom and equality are doomed to clash. They are irreconcilable ideas. And I think the challenge that Romney and his running mate Ryan threw out to the delegates is do we need both? Do we want both? America has traditionally been a society that emphasizes freedom over equality. Europe more equality over freedom. And Romney summed it up, I think, in his speech. He said, we would rather be a society that produces the prosperity of tomorrow than tries to redistribute the prosperity of today. Who's going to win that debate? We'll see in November.
See. You mentioned Europe there. Now, the whole election campaign has been with the backdrop of the fiscal debt crisis throughout Europe, which has provided fodder for both campaigns. But do you think it's helped or hindered the election process?
That's a good question again. I think it's brought the question to the fore. I don't know if it's helped or hindered, and again, we'll know at the end of the election cycle in the United States. I mean, one thing for sure is that it's revealed to American policymakers the costs of a fiscal crisis, a smoldering and escalating fiscal crisis. It's also shown them in a negative way the cost of not taking bold political action, of being gridlocked or hoping the problem goes away and procrastinating. And it's also shown that if a relatively economically insignificant country like Greece can push the world to the, or at least the European Union, to the precipice of disaster, no government, especially a government as hugely significant as the United States, can afford to ignore this problem. So yeah, it's propelled it. They've watched Europe and it's propelled it to the top of the agenda.
Well, yep, things certainly seem to be heating up and November's not so far away now, so we'll soon see what happens, I guess. But thank you for your insights just now, John.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Now that's all from John and myself for the moment, but click back to Dukascopy for all the latest news and updates. For now though, goodbye.